No, they're coming, they're coming. I thought that was the prize. Okay, folks. Well, I might as well get started and welcome you all to the inaugural Great Science Debate here in the School of Bees. And this highly anticipated event, and obviously there's a buzz around it because Rob has created a hashtag if you want to start tweeting. #BeesPRF, so get on your phones and send it around. And we hope that this could be an ongoing tradition, unless, of course, it becomes so divisive that we never recover from the damage done. But either way, the outcome of today, it's going to be fun. So Richard said we should introduce ourselves in case we all don't know who we are. So I'm Rob Brander, and it's my pleasure to be the Supreme Arbiter today. I don't know why I was chosen. These days it's more like Supreme Pizza for me. But I think I was chosen because I believe everything I hear. And that makes me completely impartial to everything, and I'm bound to be impressed by all these arguments. And today we're very, very privileged to have some giants, some intellectual giants of the school here, and Steve Bonser, and pitted against each other to debate the age-old question of science. What is better, pure science or applied science? Richard, what do you want to call it? Heads. Okay, and it is heads, all right, see? So Richard, do you guys want to go first, or you guys want to go second?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you guys can go bat first. Team, hang on, which team? Team Applied goes first.
Thanks, Rob. This just seemed like a really good idea a couple of months ago. Not so much right now. I'm going to spend a little bit of time right at the very beginning trying to destabilize what they probably think we're going to talk about. For one thing, no real intention of making this about a crossfire about the public good of science. I just can't argue that because I don't really believe that. So everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be coming from the things that I truly believe. The public good of science, I think that's a great side effect of doing some science, and applied science is particularly good at giving some public good. The public good, well, science is not really about making the public eat their vegetables. And if you try too hard with the public and you give them some stories that they don't really like, you get death threats, or maybe even some followed through things. So this is not really about what the public needs. It's about what science is for. It's about science being a method to address fundamental problems, to add knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. On the public good front, I don't see this as developing an argument on the economic value of science. There, I think, well, we have kind of both some positive things to say about that. And I'm going to be touching on this a little bit later in my time, if I actually get around to it now that I see how quickly 5 minutes can go. But both applied and pure sciences can add a tremendous economic benefit. So it seems like I'm conceding the high ground here. Well, I'm absolutely not. What our opponents have done, probably due to the leadership of one of the team who tends to shoot first and ask questions later, made a terrible blunder. And they made this debate and they framed it about what's the best science. Well, a lot of our arguments can be focused on that there's no best science. Applied science and pure sciences can add a tremendous amount of good. So both of these sciences have their place. And this is what we're trying to argue here today. What they're going to be left with is the idea of arguing that their science is the best and marginalizing completely the applied sciences. So, if for some reason you are talking to a physicist and you ask him about the nature of science, you say, well, what about science? Undoubtedly, they'll come back with that Ernst Rutherford gem from early 1900s that physics is the only pure science, all other sciences are stamp collecting. And this is a really insightful statement in two ways. One, it tells us that physicists haven't come up with a good one-liner in about 110 years. And two, that from the outside looking in, you look at what we do in this school, the biological, earth, and environmental sciences, almost all other scientists look at this as a continuum of sitting somewhere between the pure and applied. That very few of us actually do pure science, and very few of us actually do applied science. So we'll do it somewhere on a continuum. For example, my colleague Emma, who seems to be missing today, and myself work on invasive species. Invasive species are fundamentally about how a new species arrive in an area and adapt to these areas and flourish. For some reason, Emma's lab gets pigeonholed as a very pure science lab. The students line up to come to her lab to address the fundamental ways that knowledge works, and students come to my lab because they have a real itch to scratch about saving the world. But I think these are two different things, two different pigeonholes that we put ourselves in that really we're just asking the same questions.
I'm not supposed to say anything, of course, to bias you, but that was very nice, Steve. That was a nice side of you we haven't seen before. That's good. Okay, so who's first up for Team Pure? Richard. So I forgot to mention the duck call is the 5-minute warning, all right?
Okay, so it's really a poor joke that we're even here debating whether pure science is the best science, when all scientists know it's a fact. Consequently, my job in opening the case for our side is just incredibly simple. Today's scientific world and the history of science bear testament to our case, contrasting the sewers of applied science. In the science world, it's the best researchers who are rightly rewarded, and pure science reigns supreme. We pure researchers have the highest ranking papers, lots of PhD students churning out our papers, and the most Australian Research Council ARC grants. Some might try and convince you that a grant dollar is the same whatever its source. How wrong! An ARC, sorry, my bra straps have an ARC dollar is worth tens or perhaps 100 times more than a dollar from elsewhere. This university taxes money from other sources but not ARC. Why? Because we promote the best. Status, money, respect, promotion, quite rightly go to the best. Those doing pure science. Not to put too fine a point on it, they do shit science. I can see many of you agreeing with me today. It's such an appropriate adjective, but it's also a very useful acronym. SHIT. Remember that. S is for simple. Their science is full of simplistic waffle, occasionally supported by quantification, usually only expressed as averages, with no measure of variation. Heaven forbid testing for significance or modelling. Some of their tones even have pie charts. Something I'm sure many of you have heard Madame Curie's alter ego rail about. Try translocating an applied science into another lab anywhere else in the world, or even Australia. It would be like moving an aquatic animal into a terrestrial ecosystem. They just wouldn't survive. The contrast with pure science is stark. So next time you think applied science, you only need to think shit. I'm finished yet.
The topic for our debate today, and just in case you have been misled by the bluff of the other team, is that pure science is the best science. So let me start by saying that we most definitely and positively don't regard ourselves as the negative team, but we do regard the statement as absolutely, demonstrably false. The other team has tried to tell you that the most important discoveries by scientists have been the direct result of pure science. But this is very misleading. They have misled you because most of those scientists weren't engaging in pure research at all. And that means research for its own sake with no predetermined goal. To the contrary, most of them had very specific goals, in fact, that they were working towards. But when a serendipitous thing happened, they were able to re-gear, take advantage of that, and apply the knowledge to further science. And, for example, it is true that computer technology that we all use today was actually invented by physicists that were working on pure research. The reason that that came about was because they needed to communicate that information, the data from their experiments, overseas to teams working in the US and UK. So it came about not out of the pure science, but the need for the applied science. So, if, for example, though, I just wanted to smash rocks for the heck of it, with no immediate goal or application in mind, which is, well, that would mean I would be on the other side, on the other team, because that's exactly what they do. But I don't. I blow up rocks for a purpose, and that is to save the planet, one species at a time. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to point out is that it has often been said that a pure science is an applied science that has outlived its usefulness. And exactly which science is pure and which is applied depends on when that occurred and in what century and at what time and when society needed to solve those problems. For example, astronomy is often considered to be a pure science, but in fact in the 15th and 16th centuries it was very much an applied science that was basically needed for the naval powers at that time to work out basically where they were and where they were going. In conclusion, we believe that pure science is not the best science, it is another science.
Wow, that's some heavy hitting, Sue, at the end there. That was great. Terrific. You just laid them, killed them. So you really get to blow up landforms to look for fossilized bats. It's amazing. I'm jealous. All right, round two. Now we've got the pure team in response with Madame Marie Curie.
Merci. Allô?
Allô, allô?
Bonjour. Professeur, Madame MS, 208 invités. The opposition have spent so much time sitting on the fence, I'm worried that they have hurt themselves. But it is my great pleasure to be here today. When my colleague Dr. Johnston said, please, can you do this? I have to be on a tropical island. I have to film the television shows, very important. I said, but, oh, of course. But it is too easy. And then I felt sad. I felt sad for the opposition because they will have nothing to say. And what they do say will be so stupid. And I would be too, how you say, embarrassment for them. And she said, Marie, don't worry. They will be paid by a big company. They will not care what they say. They will get only satisfaction from the mullah. And I said, I know. I have met many of these types. They are not motivated by the truth. It is sad. They are only motivated by the money. And as Charles Darwin said, too often ignorance begets confidence. When in fact knowledge should, and I will not let ignorance win today. So, I will talk first about myself. You will know my name is Marie Curie, but as one of the stupid people on the opposition said, that is not my only name. So I will explain my accent. It's a bit strange. Petit peu, Mary, but it's because actually my maiden name is Skłodowska. I am Polish. I'm from Poland, that's my homeland. So I'm channeling Borat now. Okay. I discovered two elements. The first, my favorite, polonium. Polonium. Named after my homeland, Poland, yes. It's not so famous because it's not so useful. But the second is radium. Radium, radiology, radioactivity. I came up with these names, yes. No, so I'm not listening to Einstein. He's my friend, I'm only halfway through. So I have some radium. No, that's to keep me warm in the shade. So, radium. I always keep close to my heart. Yes, so what did I do when I discovered this new element? Did I patent it? No. Did I patent the process of extracting this? No, I could have made a lot of money. But no, because I wanted everyone to be able to do research with this element. Yes. And that, my friends, mon ami, is the definition of pure science. We are not motivated by money, but we are motivated by the truth. We give, and we give, and we give. Elements, calculus, gravitation, the general theory of, relativity, everything we give. But what are they? They are fluff. Fluffy stuff, That stuff that you dust from the shelves every week, that is what they are. They are reality television. A moment in time. A tale told by idiots full of sound and fury signifying nothing. But we are pure science, and our discovery stands the test of time. And not only that, we lift the heart and the soul up to the heavens. You will not need money. You will not need fame. You will not have a credit card, and you will not have a train. It might be tough and it might be cruel, but this might just save your life. It will feed your heart and your soul. And so thank you for listening today, and I hope that one day you will see the glow from an element of your own security.
So, what exactly went on during the shooting of Coastal Australia there? I think we got a Logie winner on our hands, I don't know. Okay, that's going to be hard to beat. But I think Rob Brooks is up to the challenge. So he's going to finish off his case for Team Applied. Off you go, Rob. This is the last chance.
Thanks, it shouldn't take very long. In advertising, they say that if you don't have anything useful or nice to say about your product, then you should sing a song. And if you don't have a backing band, then you should get Sacha Baron Cohen in to work up a character. So I suppose it's a wonderful attempt, but really, we've just been handed the easier job today. What we have here, in these three people to my immediate left, is a massive failure of imagination. not only in the costumes and the geek stereotypes and the self-parody, but I would expect nothing less really from a team with such a lack of imagination as to call themselves pure sciences, as if there was any other kind. As Steve Bonser said in his introductory comments, and as Sue Hand said followed up, the proposition before you today is that pure science is the best science. Now, rejecting this proposition is laughably easy because we're not compelled to argue that any other form of science is better than this pure science of which they speak, if to use, yeah. The vast majority of science, the very best science, I should give you your other toys back so that you can amuse yourselves. Can't get that silly just playing by yourself, or you can actually, but we haven't published that yet. The best science, and even some science that perhaps isn't so illustrious, serves the ultimate applied end, the public good. So the argument advanced by our opponents that pure science drives progress in the applied sphere has been efficiently debunked by both of my partners here. The traffic of progress flows both ways, and it flows both ways because its science and its applications are inseparable. Richard's argument reminds me of those neo-Reaganites in the modern US Republican Party that, well, that too, but he's a method actor, who say that the best way to get the US economy moving is to cut taxes on the mega wealthy because that frees up the engines of economic growth. And as they fill their boots, the money will somehow trickle down. I'm not sure how it gets from the Cayman Islands back to the US, but anyway. It's an argument that all of you and anyone in this country whose surname isn't Reinhardt or Forrest or Packer or Murdoch will immediately recognize as specious. Let's just go to the word eureka. Now, eureka, you might think, is the truest expression in a single word of pure science. Who said eureka first? Archimedes of Syracuse. What was he doing? He was thinking about a problem, a scientific problem that he solved in a most scientific fashion. The problem was, who was the cheating bastard who was stealing gold from the king? And he figured out when he got into his bath, supposedly, that the water that the crown displaced would tell you the density of the object. Eureka, I found it. It was the ultimate applied solution. We like to believe in luck. We like to believe that somehow if we go out there and we study science for its pure sake and we look for picking up radioactive pebbles on the beach and putting them in our pocket where we should actually get the safety officer to deal with them and thereby not die of cancer in our 40s and maybe win a few more prizes, we tend to think that we could all be so lucky. It's said of Columbus when he went to the New World that he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. And when he came back, he didn't know where he had been. And that's nonsense. It's demonstrably false. But it feeds this belief that we like to have that somehow if we just plug away at it and we study things for their own pure sake, that somehow we will end up on a more appropriate and productive shore. Scientists who claim to be doing pure research have simply failed to think deeply about what they're doing or imagine the ramifications of their work. They are not working to their potential, and there exists a great danger that they might end up gazing at their navels, which evidently is what my opponents have been doing.
Wow, that felt good, Rob. That was Rob's a smart guy. Have some wine. Okay, so we're down to our last speaker, last but not least, arguing for the pure science. Last chance. Head of school, David Cohen. Any false names, aliases? No, I don't need them. All right.
So, fellow scholars, to which I only refer to those who do not publish in journals with the word applied in them. Today's debate has reached the core of our existence, the foundation upon which UNSW was meant to be based. Scientia, it's in the motto. But the question is, what type of science? We have taken one line, and our opponents have failed to argue the second line. Richard demonstrated most eloquently that purity is of greater worth than utility. The ARC knows this. the pure giving money to the pure. Madame Curie has demonstrated in her own work 2 Nobel Prizes not sullied by commercialism. And she's cited as a fantastic example, Galileo. He took Lippershey's newly invented telescope, and Galileo pointed that telescope at the stars rather than his neighbour's bedroom. It's ultimately a question of chimps versus champs. Only pure science sets the champs apart from the chimps. So having eaten the banana, all the chimp thinks is, where's the next banana? Whereas the pure champ, having risen above such banana banalities, will ask the question, why is a banana yellow? Only science has lifted our knuckles off the ground. In fact, as Rob pointed out, Darwin started with his first chapter, which was applied, and moved on to the pure. So what arguments have our opponents posited, like a vomiting 3-month-old? So we'll start with Sue. I was almost drawn into Sue's argument about serendipity, but I'll come to paleontology in a moment. Now,
Careful there.
Mike telling me to be careful. Oh, yeah. Rob has taken moderately good pure science, but reduced it to a form that Queenslanders will award. And I criticise our MC, who has unfortunately popularised what was otherwise good pure science, with the base, pathetic motive of just saving a few drowning surfers. There is, as I think Rob pointed out, science and its applications. That sort of thing up the back of the boat. Let's look at Steve. Steve started off by saying that he believes in stuff. Well, a pure scientist would be able to prove stuff. So in keeping with the traditions of applied science, that includes palm reading, water divination, phrenology, our opponents have attempted simply to mislead. They've tried to convince you of the merits of applied science on the basis of baubles, snake oil and gadgets. They'd offer cocaine to kiddies. They may have touted a few trivial side effects, antibiotics, mobile phones. But we pure scientists, as we have predicted from first principles, have intentionally glossed over the evil that applied science has brought us. Pure physics gave us the glories of quantum mechanics, quantum theory. Applied physics gave us nuclear weapons. Pure chemistry gave us Schrodinger's equation. Applied chemistry gave us organochlorine pollution. Pure geology gave us plate tectonics. Applied geology gave us Gina, Eddie and Clive. Pure science has shone and even defined what light is. Applied science has merely taken us down dark alleys. So I must look around this university for examples of purity for us all to emulate. Those whose research is of no sullied practical application. I can go no further than astrophysics. Defining the distance between here and the edge of the universe and then questioning what's beyond it is of no practical use. But the question leaves us mesmerised. Within bees, in terms of useless science, we can go no further than paleontology. Let's face it, what some large lizardy chicken dropped dead 65 million years ago is ultimately an exercise in postmodernist storytelling. But it is fascinating to any 10-year-old. Pure science captivates. And I will draw on the school of mathematics. They have set up a departmental apartheid system. You have the applied mathematicians, 1 + 1 = 2. Even worse, the statisticians, 1 + 1 approximately equals 2. And they have set apart a department called pure mathematics. And the pure mathematicians ask questions such as, what is 1? We were honoured to have our faculty reviewed by a panel of eminent scientists, led by the director of the Centre for Theoretical Geophysics at Cambridge. None of that applied rubbish at Cambridge. You would never hear an Oxford Don say, "Hey, by gum lads, that there geophysics helped down pit gaining coal." In fact, I can't understand why this university degrades itself by retaining faculties of engineering, scientists apprentice in dirty overalls, business, bookkeepers, medicine, butchers in beamers. When we're a university, we're not a TAFE. We must look to those faculties that are pure. We must look to FBE, whose buildings are unconstructible. To COFA, whose art is uninterpretable. To law, whose arguments are unsupportable. And to arts, whose research is untestable. These guide us in academic purity. At least to our credit, this university disestablished the Faculty of Applied Science, signalling it's time to shake off the red brick technical college cocoon. It's a disgrace this university retains its motto, Manu et Mente, we work for minties. Whereas Sydney retains that glorious motto that I grew up under, Sidere menseata mutato. Though the constellations change, our research is just as pure as Oxford and Cambridge. So, in conclusion, the Enlightenment drove us to seek scientific truth and beauty, for truth and beauty's sake, to revel in just knowing the truth, rather than making money or a few cheap books out of it, to gain kudos with honour. UNSW has pursued the applied agenda too long, and we continue to lag at the bottom of the group of 8. It's time to grow up. I ask you to unequivocally reject our opponents' arguments. If UNSW is to scale the heights of scientific glory, it'll be through pure science and not its debased shadow.
You know, I find it really, I still don't understand why people shoot you when you're in the field. Well, let's give a big round of applause to all our speakers today. Okay, so now to decide who wins the great debate. Now, one thing I completely forgot to ask was, is there a prize? There's no prize, just bragging rights. Okay. Now, I've got my own thoughts on this, but my own thoughts really don't count for much, because obviously my book is worthless. But what we'll do, we'll just do an old-fashioned vote by applause and just making noise. Okay, and what we'll do first, if you think that Team Pure, in the table close to me, that's David, Marie, and Richard, won that debate, make some noise now. I think you guys are history. All right, if you think the Team Applied, which is Sue, Steve, and Rob, won, make some noise. Which just goes to show that cheap entertainment really doesn't work in the end. And props. I think it was a bit louder for Team Applied. And I think they were a very deserving winner, to be honest. And I think, I'm not going to sum it up too much, but I hate to say this, but I think Steve had the golden nugget in that whole debate when he said, there is no best science, there is a place for both. And that place really is the School of Bees. Huh? Nothing. So anyway, thanks to everyone, and hopefully we can do this again next year. Okay. And there's plenty of food out there, maybe even some drinks. There's still drinks from the River Center.